The Erebus Eternal drifted through the Kepler Nebula like a cathedral of death, its hull scarred by centuries of cosmic radiation and micrometeorite impacts. At 12 kilometers long and 3 wide, the ancient human vessel was a monument to forgotten engineering, a leviathan that had been silent for over 400 years. Captain HFY of the Kolarian hegemony studied the massive derelict through the viewscreen of her flagship, the Crimson Talon. Her elongated skull gleamed in the bridge's bioluminescent lighting, 4 amber eyes tracking the ship's slow rotation. Around her, the bridge crew of various species worked in hushed tones, their usual chatter subdued by the presence of the ghost ship. "Scans complete, Captain," reported Navigation Officer Korvac, his chitinous fingers dancing across holographic displays. "The vessel shows no life signs, no energy readings, no thermal signatures. It's completely dead. Dead for 4 centuries, added Science Officer Yelani, her tentacles coiling with excitement. "According to our databases, this is one of the legendary human sleeper ships, colony vessels that vanished during their great exodus. The humans themselves went extinct 300 years ago." HFY's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The humans had been a curious species, violent, unpredictable, but possessing a stubborn tenacity that had briefly challenged the established galactic order before their civilization collapsed under its own aggression. Their ships, however, remained scattered throughout the galaxy like tombstones, occasionally discovered by salvage crews who found little more than corroded metal and ancient bones. "What's our estimate on salvageable materials?" she asked. "Substantial," Yelani replied, consulting her readings. "The hull appears to be constructed from a titanium-neutronium alloy we've never encountered. The internal structure suggests advanced manufacturing techniques. This could finance our entire expedition." The Crimson Talon was part of a 50-ship flotilla, pirates, raiders, and opportunists who had united under HFY's command. They'd been operating on the galactic rim for 2 years, preying on isolated colonies and merchant vessels. The discovery of the Erebus Eternal represented the largest potential prize they'd encountered. "Begin docking procedures," HFY ordered. "Boarding teams Alpha through Delta. Prepare for salvage operations. Full environmental suits. We don't know what toxins might be aboard a human vessel." As the Crimson Talon and 3 other ships moved to dock with the massive derelict, HFY felt a strange unease. Something about the human ship's perfect preservation bothered her. Most derelicts showed signs of system failures, explosive decompressions, or battle damage. The Erebus Eternal appeared merely sleeping. The docking clamps engaged with metallic, shrieks that echoed through both vessels. Boarding teams assembled in the airlocks, their equipment including plasma cutters, gravity manipulators, and enough firepower to handle any automated defenses that might have survived the centuries. "Captain," Korvac's voice carried a note of confusion, "I'm detecting something unusual. The ship's rotation has stopped." HFY turned sharply. "Impossible. A vessel that size doesn't just stop rotating without massive thrust application." "Confirmed. Captain, the Erebus Eternal has ceased all movement. It's now perfectly stationary relative to our position." A chill ran down HFY's spine. In 30 years of space piracy, she'd learned to trust her instincts, and every instinct was screaming, "Danger," but the potential profits were too enormous to ignore. "Continue boarding operations," she commanded, though her voice lacked its earlier confidence. "But maintain full tactical readiness. All ships report any anomalies immediately." The boarding. Teams breached the outer airlocks of the Erebus Eternal, their lights cutting through absolute darkness as they entered corridors that hadn't felt the touch of living beings for 4 centuries. Behind them, the pirate fleet maintained formation, weapons powered but not yet targeted. None of them noticed the faint, almost imperceptible vibration that began deep within the human ship's core, a rhythmic pulse like a massive heart slowly awakening from an impossibly long sleep. The Erebus Eternal had been waiting. Commander Zorian Kelisek led Alpha Team through the main corridors of the Erebus Eternal, his plasma rifle's targeting beam cutting through the oppressive darkness. The silence was absolute except for the soft hiss of their environmental suits and the crunch of ancient debris beneath their boots. "These corridors are massive," whispered Specialist Nixara, her forearms carrying scanning equipment. "Built for creatures much larger than any known human remains we've studied." Kelly-Sec nodded grimly. The passageways were indeed enormous, nearly 4 meters high and 6 wide, with architectural features that suggested they were designed for beings of considerable physical presence. Emergency lighting strips ran along the walls, dark and lifeless, but the infrastructure appeared remarkably intact. "Beta team, report," Kelly-Sec spoke into his comm unit. "Engineering section accessed," came the reply from team leader Vashati. "Captain, you need to see this, the power core. It's not like anything in our databases." "Define not like anything." Vexthari's voice crackled through the comm system. "It's a fusion antimatter hybrid, but the containment method uses principles we don't understand. The reactor chamber is the size of a small city, and there are conduits running throughout the entire ship. But here's the strange part. Everything appears to be in perfect working condition." On the bridge of the Crimson Talon, Vexthari felt her unease deepen. A 400-year-old ship with functional systems violated everything they knew about technology degradation in space. "Gamma team has reached what appears to be the bridge," reported another voice. "The architecture is unsettling. Everything is built for giants, but there are smaller control stations integrated throughout, as if two different species designed this together." Kelly-Sec's team had reached a vast chamber that defied classification. The space stretched for hundreds of meters in every direction, filled with what appeared to be massive cylindrical structures arranged in perfect rows. Each cylinder was 3 meters in diameter and nearly 10 meters tall, constructed from a translucent material that revealed shadowy forms within. "Cryogenic pods," Nixara breathed, her scanning equipment going wild. "Thousands of them. And they're not empty." The readings were impossible to interpret. The beings within the pods registered as human according to basic biological markers, but their physical dimensions were wrong. Too large, too dense, with bone structures that seemed reinforced beyond normal human parameters. "Captain," Kelly-Sec reported, his voice tight with growing alarm. "We've found the colonists. They're still alive." The word sent a shockwave through the communication network. Living humans after 4 centuries was theoretically impossible, but the scanner readings were undeniable. Life signs were minimal but present, deep hibernation maintained by systems that should have failed decades ago. "That's impossible," Vexthari said, but even as she spoke, her tactical officer was pointing frantically at his console. "Captain, energy readings from the human ship are spiking. Something is powering up." Throughout the Erebus Eternal, ancient systems began to hum with renewed life. Emergency lighting flickered on in sequence, bathing the corridors in an eerie, red glow. The boarding teams found themselves suddenly visible to whatever automated systems might be monitoring their presence. "All teams, withdraw immediately," Vexthari ordered. But her command was cut short by a new voice that filled the communication channels, a voice that spoke in archaic galactic standard, with an accent that predated the formation of most current civilizations. "Unauthorized personnel detected aboard UES Erebus Eternal. This vessel is under the protection of the Terra Colonial Authority. You have 30 seconds to withdraw to minimum safe distance before defensive protocols are activated." The voice was calm, measured, and utterly implacable. More disturbing was the fact that it was speaking from a civilization that had been extinct for 3 centuries. "Captain," Korvac reported, his voice barely above a whisper, "I'm detecting massive power buildups throughout the human ship. Weapons systems, shield generators, and something else. Something we don't have classification for." The Erebus Eternal was no longer a derelict. It was a predator awakening from a very long sleep, and 50 ships full of pirates had just made themselves its prey. The countdown had begun. The voice that echoed through space carried the weight. A forgotten authority. 20 seconds until defensive engagement. Hostile forces will be neutralized with extreme prejudice. Captain Vexithari's bridge erupted into chaos as officers shouted readings across the tactical displays. The Erebus Eternal was transforming before their eyes, hull sections sliding, part to reveal weapon emplacements that belonged in military nightmares rather than on a colonial vessel. "All ships, full reverse," Vexithari commanded, but she knew it was already too late. Her fastest vessels couldn't achieve safe distance in 20 seconds, and the unknown capabilities of human defensive systems meant she had no idea what constituted safe distance anyway. "Captain," Korvac's voice cracked with terror, "the human ship's mass is increasing. Impossible mass readings. It's like the ship is expanding into dimensions we can't detect." Inside the Erebus Eternal, Commander Kelisek's boarding team watched in horrified fascination as the cryogenic pods began their wake-up sequences. The translucent cylinders filled with swirling gases, and the shadowy forms within began to move with the slow, deliberate motions of beings emerging from centuries of sleep. "Central Command, this is Kelisek," he whispered into his comm. "The humans are waking up, and they're not normal humans." The first pod opened with a hiss of escaping gases that carried scents of ozone and something metallic. What emerged was humanoid in basic structure, but stood nearly 3 meters tall, with muscle mass that seemed impossible for any natural evolution. The being's skin had a subtle metallic sheen, and when its eyes opened, they glowed with an inner light that suggested cybernetic enhancement. More pods were opening throughout the vast chamber. Hundreds of these enhanced humans were awakening, their movements initially sluggish but gaining coordination with alarming speed. They wore no clothing. Their enhanced physiology apparently required none, but each carried what appeared to be weapons integrated directly into their bodies. 10 seconds, the ship's voice announced, and now Vexithari could hear something new in its tone. Not just mechanical authority, but anger. Ancient, patient anger that had been building for 400 years. "All boarding teams, emergency." "Extraction," she screamed, knowing it was futile. The Erebus Eternal fired. What emerged from the human ship wasn't energy weapons or projectiles in any conventional sense. Instead, space itself seemed to twist and bend around focused points of impossible gravitational force. 3 of Vexithari's smaller vessels simply ceased. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but collapsed into themselves as if they had never existed. The larger ships fared better initially, their shields absorbing the gravitational distortions. But the attacks continued with mechanical precision. Each pulse from the human ship was calibrated specifically for its target. Gravitational lenses that bypassed energy shields, gravitational waves that crushed hull structures from the inside out. "Return fire," Vexithari ordered desperately. Her fleet's combined firepower was considerable. Plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, and exotic particle beams that could crack planets. The barrage struck the Erebus Eternal's hull and simply disappeared. The human ship absorbed the energy like a sponge, and Vexithari realized with growing horror that they were feeding it. Inside the ship, the awakened humans moved with purpose that spoke of military training beyond anything the current galaxy had ever produced. They flowed through the corridors in perfect formation, hunting down the boarding teams with efficiency that was terrifying to observe. Commander Kelisek found himself face to face with one of the giants. The being looked down at him with eyes that held knowledge of warfare spanning centuries, and when it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that suggested cybernetic augmentation. "You boarded a Terra Colonial Authority vessel," it said calmly. "This constitutes an act of war against humanity. Your species and civilization will be catalogued for response." "Humanity is extinct," Kelisek managed to whisper. The giant smiled, revealing teeth that had been replaced with something that gleamed like metal. "Humanity sleeps, but humanity does not die. We are the Eternal Guard, and we have been dreaming of home for 400 years. Behind the giant, dozens more of the enhanced humans appeared, their glowing eyes fixed on the intruders with predatory focus. "Now," the giant continued, "you will help us remember why we were sleeping. The enhanced human who had cornered Commander Kelisek moved with fluid grace despite his massive size, neural interfaces along his skull pulsing with soft blue light as he accessed data streams that had been accumulating for centuries. "I am Vanguard Axiom Hector," the giant said, his voice carrying harmonics that suggested direct neural link communication. "My designation includes tactical evaluation and hostile force neutralization. You represent an unknown threat paradigm. Around them?" The other awakened giants moved through the ship with purposes that were becoming clearer by the moment. They weren't just defending, they were learning. Every interaction with the boarding teams was being analyzed, cataloged, and shared across their neural network in real time. "Your species," Hector continued, studying Kelisek's environmental suit with eyes that seemed to see through multiple spectrums simultaneously, "employs technology consistent with mid-tier galactic civilizations. Approximately 4 centuries of advancement beyond our last active period. This suggests our hibernation protocols functioned as designed. In space, the battle had become a rout. Vexithari's fleet was being systematically dismantled by weapons that seemed to violate known physics. The Erebus Eternal fired gravitational manipulation beams that could compress matter into singularities or expand it until molecular bonds failed entirely. "Captain," reported her weapons officer, desperation clear in his multitonal voice, "our shots aren't just being absorbed, they're being converted. The human ship is using our own energy against us." Through the view screen, they watched as the ancient vessel deployed additional weapon systems that had been hidden beneath its hull plating. Massive arrays unfurled like metallic flowers, each one focusing energy in ways that made their own military technology look primitive. "Sir," Korvac's voice was barely audible, "I'm detecting communication signals between the human ship and something else. Multiple something elses. Deep space, beyond our sensor range." Vexithari felt her blood freeze. If this ship was communicating with others of its kind, her entire civilization could be facing a threat they had no capacity to understand or resist. Inside the Erebus Eternal, Vanguard Hector had extracted complete information about galactic civilization from Kelisek's equipment and neural patterns. The process was invasive but not permanently damaging. The Eternal Guard had learned efficiency during their long sleep. "Interesting," Hector mused, sharing his findings with his awakening. "Comrades, through their neural link, humanity has been declared extinct. Our colonies were never established. The Terra Colonial Authority has been forgotten." Another giant approached, equally massive, but with different cybernetic modifications that suggested specialization in scientific analysis. "I am Vanguard Prime Lysander. Tactical assessment complete. Current galactic civilization operates under the assumption that humanity represents no threat. This provides significant strategic advantage. The pirate fleet represents no meaningful opposition," added a third voice as Vanguard Tactical Morgana materialized from the shadows. Her enhancements were more subtle but somehow more threatening. Adaptive camouflage systems and weapon interfaces that suggested she specialized in infiltration and elimination. Together, the 3 giants represented just a tiny fraction of the thousands awakening throughout the ship, but their combined intellectual capacity was staggering. Centuries of accumulated data were being processed, analyzed, and converted into actionable intelligence at superhuman speeds. "The question," Hector said thoughtfully, "is whether current galactic civilization represents a threat to potential human colonies or merely an inconvenience." Outside, Vexithari's fleet was down to 12 functional ships. Her boarding teams were either captured or eliminated, and the human vessel showed no signs of expending any significant effort in the engagement. "Captain," her communication officer reported with trembling appendages, "we're receiving a transmission from the human ship. It's addressed to you personally." The view screen activated, showing the interior of what appeared to be the Erebus Eternal's bridge. The architecture was both beautiful and terrible, designed for beings who had transcended normal human limitations while retaining the essential characteristics that made them recognizably human. Vanguard Hector appeared. On screen, his massive frame filling the display. Behind him, dozens of other enhanced humans worked at control stations that suggested technological advancement beyond anything the current galaxy had achieved. "Captain Vex Thari of the Quilarian Hegemony," he said formally. "I am Vanguard Axiom, Hector of the UES Erebus Eternal. You have attacked a vessel under the protection of the Terra Colonial Authority. This action requires response." Vexathari stared at the massive human on her screen, her 4 amber eyes trying to process what she was seeing. Behind Hector, the bridge of the Erebus Eternal hummed with activity as dozens of enhanced humans operated systems that seemed to blend technology with biological integration. "The Terra Colonial Authority no longer exists," she managed to say, her voice carefully controlled despite the terror clawing at her chest. "Humanity has been extinct for 3 centuries. Hector's expression didn't change, but data streams flickered across the neural interfaces visible along his skull. "Incorrect. Humanity entered extended hibernation protocols following the conclusion of the expansion wars. We are the Eternal Guard, enhanced humans tasked with protecting colonial expeditions during their journey to designated settlement worlds. But your journey never completed," Vexathari protested. "Your ships were lost, your colonies never established." "Also incorrect." A new voice joined the conversation as Vanguard Prime Lysander appeared beside Hector. Where Hector was clearly a warrior, Lysander's modifications suggested pure intellectual enhancement. His skull showed extensive neural augmentation, and his eyes held the cold light of computational analysis. "Our sleep was not accidental, Captain. It was strategic. The Eternal Guard was designed to activate when 2 conditions were met: arrival at our destination worlds or detection of threats to human interests." Lysander's smile was unsettling. Knowing too confident. "Your attack fulfilled the second condition. The implications hit Vexthari like a physical blow. You've been waiting. For 400 years you've been waiting for someone to attack you." "We have been dreaming," Hector corrected. "Dreaming of worlds that could support human life, of civilizations that might challenge human expansion, of technologies that could be adapted or eliminated as necessary. Your attack provided us with extensive data about current galactic military capabilities, political structures, and resource distribution." On her tactical display, Vexathari could see that her remaining ships were completely trapped. The Erebus Eternal had deployed some kind of spatial distortion field that prevented faster-than-light travel. They were contained within a sphere of twisted space-time that made escape impossible. "What do you want?" she asked, though she suspected she already knew. "Information," Lysander replied immediately. "Complete data on current galactic civilization, political entities, military capabilities, resource locations, population distributions, technological development since our hibernation began. You will provide this willingly, or we will extract it through less comfortable methods." Vexathari's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation in her species. "And if I refuse?" Vanguard Tactical Morgana materialized beside the other. 2. Her adaptive camouflage systems making her appearance seem almost like a magic trick. "Then we will acquire the information from other sources. Your species will be catalogued as hostile to human interests and scheduled for appropriate response." "What does that mean?" Vexthari demanded. "It means," Hector said with chilling calm, "that when humanity awakens fully, your civilization will be among those marked for elimination or subjugation, depending on your potential utility." The communication channel filled with another voice, this one carrying tones of absolute authority that made even the enhanced humans straighten slightly. "This is Eternal Commander Vex Umbrial, Senior Officer of the Erebus Eternal. Captain. Vexathari, you have 15 minutes to provide complete intelligence on current galactic civilization. This includes political maps, military assessments, technological databases, and resource surveys." The screen shifted to show a new figure, female, even more massively built than the others, with cybernetic enhancements that suggested she was designed for command functions. Her neural interfaces were more extensive than any of the others, and her eyes held the weight of absolute certainty. In return, Commander Umbriel continued, you and your surviving crews will be permitted to live. You will serve as our initial contacts with current galactic civilization, helping to smooth humanity's reintegration into galactic affairs. And if I refuse? Vexithari asked, though her voice had lost most of its defiance. Then we will extract the information from the ruins of your homeworld, Umbriel replied matter-of-factly. The choice is yours, Captain. Cooperation or the discovery of what 4 centuries of enhanced human military evolution has produced. Around Vexithari, her bridge crew looked to her with expressions of barely controlled panic. They all understood the implications. They were facing not just an individual threat, but the potential awakening of an entire human military force that had been evolving and improving during centuries of hibernation. 14 minutes, Captain, Commander Umbriel said quietly. Vexithari's hands trembled as she activated her ship's data cores, knowing that she was about to hand over intelligence that could reshape the galaxy. But as her fingers moved over the controls, Commander Umbriel's image shifted, and new information flooded the screen that made her freeze in absolute terror. Before you complete your data transfer, Umbriel said, you should understand the full scope of what you have awakened. The view screen displayed a star map that encompassed most of the known galaxy. Scattered across the display were hundreds of small markers, each pulsing with the same signature as the Erebus Eternal. 473 sleeper ships, Umbriel announced calmly, each carrying between 10 and 50,000 enhanced humans in hibernation, each equipped with similar defensive and offensive capabilities, each now beginning wake-up sequences in response to our activation signal. Vexithari's legs gave out, and she collapsed into her command chair. Nearly 500,000 enhanced humans, scattered across the galaxy, all beginning to wake up simultaneously. The implications were beyond catastrophic. That's impossible, she whispered. No civilization could maintain that many hidden ships for so long. Lysander's voice joined the conversation, carrying tones of academic precision. Human hibernation technology was perfected during the final phases of the expansion wars. Unlike the crude cryogenic systems developed by other species, our methods maintain full neural activity during sleep. We have been conscious, Captain. Learning, planning, evolving our capabilities while our bodies rested. The data transfer continued automatically while Vexithari processed this information. On worlds across the galaxy, other pirate fleets, military expeditions, and salvage operations had unknowingly triggered similar awakenings. Humanity's return would be simultaneous and coordinated. The question, Commander Umbriel continued, is what kind of galaxy we will find when we emerge fully. Your data suggests significant advancement in some areas, troubling stagnation in others. Most concerning is the apparent consolidation of power among a relatively small number of species. Hector's tactical assessment appeared on subsidiary screens. Current military technologies show little advancement beyond our pre-hibernation projections. Gravitational manipulation remains primitive. Faster-than-light travel has not progressed beyond dimensional folding techniques. Most significantly, no current civilization appears to have developed effective countermeasures against enhanced human capabilities. This suggests, Morgana added with predatory satisfaction, that our return will face minimal organized resistance. But Vexithari noticed something else in the data streams flowing between the enhanced humans. Their neural link communications were faster and more complex than anything she had ever encountered, suggesting not just individual enhancement, but collective intelligence that bordered on hive mind capabilities. You're not the same species. That left Earth, she realized aloud. You've evolved into something else entirely. We have become what humanity needed to become to survive among the stars, Commander Umbriel replied. Enhanced strength and speed for hostile environments, improved cognitive processing for complex problem-solving, extended lifespans for interstellar journeys, neural linking for perfect coordination. We are humanity perfected. The data transfer completed with a soft chime that seemed to seal Vexithari's fate. Complete intelligence on galactic civilization now rested in the hands of a species that had been considered extinct, but had instead been sleeping, planning, and preparing for their return. "Thank you for your cooperation, Captain," Umbriel said formally. "You and your surviving crews will accompany us to facilitate initial contact with galactic authorities. Your testimony will help establish humanity's legitimate claim to our original colonial territories." "What original territories?" Vexithari asked desperately. "You never established any colonies." "Incorrect again," Lysander corrected. "We established claims to 17 systems based on initial survey data. The fact that we entered hibernation before settlement began does not invalidate those claims under interstellar law. We have simply returned to collect what was always ours." The Erebus Eternal began moving, its massive bulk accelerating with impossible smoothness toward the edge of the Kepler Nebula. Around them, space twisted as the ship engaged some form of enhanced faster-than-light travel that left Vexithari's sensors struggling to maintain coherent readings. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To announce humanity's return," Commander Umbriel replied, "and to begin the process of reclaiming our rightful place in galactic civilization." Behind them, across the galaxy, hundreds of other sleeper ships were beginning similar journeys, their enhanced human crews awakening to a universe that had forgotten them, but would soon remember why humanity had once been feared. 6 months after the awakening of the Erebus Eternal, the Galactic Council convened in emergency session on the neutral world of Kepler Prime. Representatives from 47 major species filled the vast amphitheater, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, harmonic resonances, and electromagnetic pulses that the universal translators struggled to process. At the center of the assembly stood Commander Vex Umbriel, her massive frame dwarfing even the largest alien representatives. Behind her, a delegation of enhanced humans from 12 different sleeper ships demonstrated the scope of humanity's return through their mere presence. Vexithari sat in the witness section, her once proud bearing reduced to nervous alertness. She had spent the past 6 months serving as humanity's primary liaison, watching as her pirate fleet was converted into the first human diplomatic mission in 3 centuries. "Honored delegates," Umbriel began, her voice carrying through the chamber with technological enhancement that made every word crystal clear. "Humanity returns to claim our place among the civilized worlds of this galaxy." The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Representatives from species that had claimed former human territories shouted protests, while others demanded explanations for the appearance of human ships throughout their space. Chancellor Mordek of the Hegemony Tribunal, a crystalline being whose faceted body reflected light in complex patterns, called for order. "These claims are absurd. Humanity has been extinct for 3 centuries. These enhanced beings represent some unknown species attempting to exploit human historical records." Lysander stepped forward, data streams flowing visibly across his neural interfaces. "Genetic analysis confirms our human heritage. Historical records validate our colonial claims. Legal precedent supports our territorial rights under the Covenant of Civilized Worlds, a document humanity helped draft before our hibernation period." "Your hibernation period was death," declared Ambassador Kithara of the Nexus Coalition, her tentacles writhing with agitation. "Your species failed to adapt to interstellar existence and collapsed. We have legal salvage rights to all former human territories." Commander Umbriel smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both diplomatic and terrifying. "Our species did not fail, Ambassador. We evolved. The creatures you see before you represent 4 centuries of biological and technological enhancement, specifically designed for the challenges of galactic civilization." She gestured, and holographic displays filled the chamber showing the current positions of human sleeper ships. The scope was staggering. Nearly 500 vessels now occupied strategic positions throughout the galaxy, their enhanced crews, establishing claims to resources, systems, and territories that other species had considered permanently abandoned. "We offer 2 paths forward," Umbriel continued calmly. "Peaceful reintegration, with negotiated settlements for territories currently occupied by other species, or legal enforcement of our historical claims through appropriate measures. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Every representative in the chamber had received reports of the military capabilities demonstrated by awakened human ships, gravitational weapons that could collapse matter, shield systems that absorbed and redirected energy attacks, faster-than-light travel that seemed to ignore normal space-time limitations. Chancellor Mordek's crystalline form shifted through several color spectrums indicating deep consideration. What assurances can you provide that humanity's return will not destabilize existing galactic civilization? We seek integration, not domination, Umbriel replied, though her tone suggested that the distinction might be negotiable. Humanity has learned much during our hibernation period. We understand that successful galactic civilization requires cooperation between species with different capabilities and perspectives, Lysander added. However, we also understand that such cooperation must be based on mutual respect and recognition of legitimate rights. Our territorial claims are non-negotiable. Our technological capabilities are demonstrated facts. Our commitment to peaceful coexistence depends entirely on the willingness of other species to acknowledge these realities. In the witness section, Vexithari watched the proceedings with growing understanding. This wasn't really a negotiation. It was humanity announcing the terms of their return, while providing a facade of diplomatic process. The enhanced humans had spent centuries planning this moment, and every word, every gesture, every display of capability was calculated to achieve specific psychological effects on their audience. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their aggression. It had been their patience and their ability to prepare for every possible contingency. When the session ended, 47 species would return to their homeworlds carrying the same message. Humanity was back. They were no longer entirely human, and they had been planning this moment for 400 years. The age of human dominance was about to begin, whether the galaxy wanted it or not. In the years that followed, historians would mark the awakening of the sleeper ships as the moment galactic civilization entered a new era. Humanity's return reshaped trade routes, political alliances, and the very definition of what it meant to be sentient in a universe where evolution and technology had merged to create something greater than the sum of their parts. The enhanced humans proved to be both the galaxy's greatest challenge and its most effective protectors, defending their new territories with the same ruthless efficiency they had once used to establish them. And in the depths of space, a few remaining sleeper ships continued their ancient hibernation, waiting for the day when humanity might need to evolve once again.